Friday night, she wore red, the kind of red she used to save for our anniversaries, the kind that made waiters linger and teenage boys stare like they were seeing color for the first time. We were seated by the window, candlelight flickering off her wine glass, Sinatra bleeding softly from the speakers, marinara stains threatening my dress shirt. The place hadn't changed, the people had. She was halfway through her second glass of Barbera, laughing at something on her phone. Not at me. Never at me, lately. Her hand dipped under the table every few minutes, just below sight line, and her thumb danced like a nervous tick. I let her laugh, let her have her secret joy, that private little theater she thinks I'm too old or too slow to notice. Finally, I asked, "What's so funny?" She grinned without looking up. "Oh, just Derek, my work husband." Relax. The word husband snapped in my ears like a cheap belt. It's amazing how women use that term, like it's cute, harmless, like it's just office banter and soy lattes and inside jokes by the printer, like it doesn't rot the actual marriage sitting across from them. Still, I nodded, stirred my espresso, played my role. Then her phone lit up. She glanced down, expecting another wink or meme from her precious Derek. Instead, her face froze, wine smile collapsing mid-laugh. Her thumb stopped moving. Across the table, I leaned in slightly, just enough for the candle to catch the flicker of ice behind my voice. "I have to admit," I said, "this place really does have excellent service." She didn't speak. I raised my phone, showed her the outgoing email screen. 3 recipients. Subject line, ethical concern. Attached image. And there in the body, the same photo now glowing on her phone. Her and Derek, naked, in what looked like a Marriott. She was smiling in the picture. "I just forwarded that to HR," I said. "Your boss too." Her eyes widened, mouth opened. "And," I added, like a waiter offering the dessert menu, "his wife." There's a special kind of silence that comes after a bomb drops but before the dust settles. It's not peace, it's disorientation. She didn't cry, she didn't scream, she just sat there, mouth ajar, glassy-eyed, trying to compute how the evening pivoted from tiramisu to tactical strike. I spooned a bite of panna cotta. "You okay?" I asked. She blinked. You went through my phone?" "Nope, I didn't have to. You synced it to our shared cloud 6 months ago. You take such flattering pictures of yourself. Shame they're not more secure." Her hand finally rose off her lap. Trembling, she reached for her wine, missed the stem, grabbed the table edge instead. "You're insane," she whispered. I grinned. "Maybe, but apparently not as stupid as you thought. Let me say something quickly. If you're still reading, you're in this story with me now. You're watching the match burn closer to the fuse, and more than 90% of you never hit that follow button, even though it keeps this chaos rolling and the team fueled. If you're one of the few who actually gives a damn, do it. Right now. It helps more than you know." Back at the table, she finally found her voice. "This is going to ruin my career," she hissed. You can't do this. You don't know how things work." "Oh," I said, dabbing my mouth with a cloth napkin, "but that's where you're wrong. I know exactly how they work. And more importantly, I know who Derek's wife is. She's the head of legal compliance at his firm. Charming woman, big fan of workplace ethics." The color drained from her face like a plug had been pulled. "Look," she said, lowering her voice, "we can fix this. I'll talk to HR. We'll say it was a prank, a misunderstanding." I nodded slowly, savoring the last sip of coffee. "Right. And the part where he called you a soulmate in Slack messages, or the hotel receipt billed to the company card, or the timestamp photos on weekends you told me you were at your mother's?" She swallowed. Hard. You've been collecting things?" "Oh, I wouldn't call it collecting," I said. "That sounds too intentional. Let's just say I stopped deleting things, for the memories." I paid the bill in silence. The waiter smiled awkwardly, unaware he was stepping through the wreckage of a 17-year marriage. She didn't touch her food again. Her hands stayed clenched like she could strangle the consequences before they landed, but they were already airborne. As we stepped outside, she said one last thing, soft, desperate. "Why didn't you just talk to me?" I turned to her, smiled thinly. "You were already talking to someone else." She didn't follow me to the car, which was fine. I didn't plan to drive her home. I remember the first time she came home smelling like a hotel hallway, not perfume, not sweat, that sterile, overconditioned scent of Marriott linens and overpriced lobby soap. She tossed her keys on the counter like nothing was wrong and chirped something about a last-minute vendor dinner. I nodded, asked if she was hungry. She said she'd already eaten. Of course she had. That was in February. By April, she was averaging 2 to 3 of those dinners a week, always last minute, always vague. I stopped asking questions around the same time I stopped setting her plate at the table. She didn't notice either change. She used to accuse me of being paranoid. I remember that word so clearly, paranoid, like I was some tinfoil hat loon inventing threats. You're imagining things, she said, not looking up from her phone. It's just work? You wouldn't get it. She was right. I didn't get it. I didn't get how someone could text another man smiley faces at 1:12 a.m. on a Sunday, then roll over and ask me to turn off the fan because it was drying out her skin. I didn't get how a woman could laugh with her friends about the work husband, say things like God if he were single, and think it was fine as long as it was wrapped in office banner. But what I did get finally was that this wasn't a phase. It was a pattern. And I'd been trained to recognize patterns for 30 years. Corporate audits, vendor fraud, internal compliance drift. You learn to read silence like a spreadsheet. So I adjusted. I didn't rage. I didn't accuse. I didn't beg. I opened a private mailbox at a location she'd never seen, transferred our brokerage account into an individual trust with a single authorized beneficiary, me, canceled her authorized access, removed her from my living trust entirely, quietly, legally, irrevocably. I changed the primary beneficiary on my pension, told them she'd moved out. They didn't ask for proof, just a signature. I even rerouted my Amazon purchases to my office, not because I needed privacy, but because I knew it would never occur to her. The less she saw of my plans, the more she assumed I had none. It was astonishing how little she noticed. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe when you're that invested in someone else, your real husband becomes set dressing, furniture with a credit limit. By June, I'd stopped sleeping next to her altogether, claimed it was the back pain, the dog, work stress. She never pushed. She didn't miss the contact, just the convenience. I started going on long walks, not for exercise, for air. I needed distance, strategic distance, the kind you take when you're not leaving someone yet, but you're practicing. She was always too busy to notice. Board review season, she said. Everything's on fire. Always an emergency. Always someone else needing her. I started keeping a small notebook, a single page per night. Not spying, documenting. Dates, times, statements she made, names she dropped. One night she came home humming, like she just left a party. I didn't think you'd still be up, she said. I smiled. Didn't think you'd be home. She laughed, kissed the top of my head, and went straight to the shower. She never asked why I was reading old tax filings at 11:40 p.m. in the kitchen, because by then she didn't ask much of anything at all. I kept every joint document in a fireproof folder under the stairs. Birth certificates, insurance declarations, wills, power of attorney documents. Most of them had her name on them. Most of them were outdated. I started highlighting sections, anything I might need to cite later, like a lawyer prepping for a trial that hadn't been filed yet. One night, she asked why I'd stopped coming to her office parties. You used to be so supportive, she said, glass in hand, eye on her phone. I used to be invited, I said. She didn't respond, probably didn't hear it. The disconnection wasn't fast, it was glacial, which is what made it so perfect. People don't notice a glacier's moving until it crushes the village. You know the saddest part? I stopped being angry. The fury burned out early, back when I still hoped for an explanation. What replaced it wasn't numbness. It was precision. I became surgical, strategic, clinical. She used to joke that I'd make a great villain in a courtroom drama. All facts, no feelings, and she'd say. It used to make her laugh. I never told her she was right. She kept texting, I kept transferring, she kept meeting clients, I kept filing, she kept saying I was paranoid, I kept smiling, until the moment her phone lit up at that dinner table, and the avalanche started. By then I was already gone. I just left the lights on. Derek was the type of man who wore cologne to Zoom calls. You could smell the smugness through the screen, even in JPEG form. Mid-30s, teeth too white, laugh too rehearsed. He was the guy in every office who never did the real work, but always got the corner booth at happy hour, always managing stakeholders and streamlining deliverables, which apparently also included betting married coworkers and calling it team synergy. She mentioned him casually at first. Derek thinks I should lead the pitch. Derek said I have executive energy. Derek says I remind him of Amal Clooney if she did UX. I smiled, said something dry, then looked him up. Married, 2 kids, real estate license in addition to his corporate gig, perfect hair, one of those guys who says cheers in emails. His LinkedIn profile had a picture of him mid-laugh, like someone just told him how clever he was. I hated him on sight, not out of jealousy, instinct. You know what tipped me off? It wasn't the late nights. It wasn't the mysterious hotel receipts she forgot to delete. It wasn't even the Friday mornings she'd come home with hair curled differently than when she left. No, it was the socks. She started buying men's socks with loud, stupid patterns. Mustaches, avocados, corgis and bow ties. I asked once, jokingly, "Since when do you like novelty socks?" She said, "Oh, Derek wears them. He's hilarious." Like that was supposed to mean something. The more she mentioned him, the quieter I got. It wasn't fear, it was calculus. I was watching a woman gamble everything on a man who said things like vibe check unironically. I never asked questions. Instead, I logged into our shared iCloud account. She didn't know the old laptop in the guest room was still synced. 6 months earlier, she'd borrowed it during a Zoom crash and never signed out. The digital trail was a bonfire. Group chats labeled Lunch Squad, where Derek referred to her as his professional soulmate. They had emojis for inside jokes, eggplants and flames, and a cartoon fox she called our little mascot. He once sent her a voice memo whispering, "I can't stop thinking about Monday." Monday, as it turned out, was a Marriott off Route 28. They had a whole system. Calendar invites blocked as QBR prep, files named Q4 forecast, which were just PDFs with a single period typed inside. Meeting locations swapped last minute via iMessage. He'd say, "Got us a suite this time." Big boy budget, followed by a winking face. Professional indeed. She responded with things like, "Better bring that A game, work hubby," and "We should charge the company for therapy after what we're about to do." It was all there, conversations, voice memos, hotel confirmations, GPS tags, and the photo. God, that photo. She took it herself, arm out, head on his chest, both of them under hotel sheets, her face half hidden, but that smirk unmistakable. His hand rested on her shoulder like a brand. It had a timestamp, 2:14 a.m., a Thursday. She'd told me she was presenting in Baltimore, that she'd be back late. The client dinner ran long. They weren't even subtle. I didn't confront her. I just downloaded it, backed it up twice. One copy in a cloud folder labeled taxes, the other in a thumb drive taped inside a book cover, Dale Carnegie, ironically. The morning of the dinner, I printed a copy and placed it in my coat pocket. I wasn't planning to use it that night, but something told me I'd want it close, and I did. I really, really did. They thought they were playing a secret game. They didn't know I had the playbook. It's wild, the level of confidence you need to cheat on someone using your shared cloud storage. Like leaving the murder weapon on the kitchen table and asking your husband to pass the salt. But that's what happens when people think you're weak. They mistake silence for surrender. Patience for passivity. Smiles for stupidity. I wasn't stupid. I was studying. And when she looked at me across that dinner table, her screen still glowing with the evidence of her own undoing, all I could think was how poetic it was that she pulled the trigger. All I did was forward it. They thought they were in control, but they forgot. I wasn't watching them anymore. I was watching the fallout. Monday mornings used to be background noise, the shuffle of heels, the hiss of the espresso machine, her rushed kisses that barely grazed my cheek while she muttered, "I'm already late." I never expected silence. But that morning, the kind of stillness in our house felt like a breath being held at gunpoint. I was at the kitchen table, coffee hot, eggs untouched, phone face down, not out of disinterest, out of satisfaction. I already knew what was happening on the other end of it. HR meetings don't wait until noon when the subject line reads ethical concern and the attachment is high resolution infidelity. By 8:02 a.m., her keycard was locked, digital access revoked, no elevator, no email. Her phone buzzed twice. I didn't look. I didn't have to. I knew the names, knew the reactions. HR first. always neutral, always robotic. Please report to floor 7 at 9 o'clock a.m. Your presence is required for an internal matter. Then came the real blow. Her boss, a man she used to fawn over like he was a TED Talk with a Rolex. He replied, "This is serious. I'll expect you in my office at 9:30, alone." The cherry on the schadenfreude sundae came from Derek's wife. I saw the text notification flash on her locked screen when she stormed into the kitchen, face flushed, hair tangled from a night of no sleep and a morning of corporate carnage. The message preview was short, 5 words. "Meet me at 4 p.m., bring a lawyer." She didn't sit, she didn't breathe, just stood there vibrating, like her body hadn't caught up with the emotional wreckage yet. Then came the explosion. "You had no right." I looked up, slow, deliberate, the way you do when someone already lost the game and doesn't know it yet. "I had every right," I said. "You sent it to me first." She blinked like the logic didn't compute. "That was private. You hacked me." I raised my brow. "Didn't hack anything. You synced your phone to our shared cloud, remember? You just never signed out." She started pacing, like movement would build a time machine, like panic had a volume knob, and she could scream her way back to last week. "They're gonna fire me," she muttered, more to herself than to me. "They can't. Jesus, this could ruin everything." I sipped my coffee. "I thought it was just harmless flirting. Isn't that what you told me? He's just my work husband?" Her mouth twisted. "You blindsided me. You humiliated me." "No," I said calmly. "You did that." I just hit forward. Her eyes flicked to my phone. "Who else did you send it to?" I shrugged. "HR, your boss, and of course, his wife." Thought she deserved the courtesy. She lunged toward me, stopped halfway, as if realizing mid-step that whatever confrontation she thought she was walking into had already been concluded. "Why?" she hissed. "Why would you do this?" Now that was rich. I leaned back in my chair. "You want to talk ethics now? After lying, cheating, and smirking through dinners like you were above consequence?" "I didn't cheat," she snapped. "Not really. It was complicated." I nodded. "Yeah, I saw the complication. It was under the sheets with you at the Marriott." She went quiet then. Not from guilt, but from recalculation. She wasn't feeling remorse. She was assessing damage. That's what always struck me about her. Not that she lied, plenty of people do, but that she did it so surgically, like it was beneath her to even feel bad about it. She grabbed her phone, her hands were trembling, but her face tried to settle into that executive expression, the one she used in meetings. Detached, measured, dangerous when cornered. "You could have just asked me," she said. I laughed, one dry barked note. "I did. You said I was paranoid." She stared at me, searching for some crack in the wall, something to manipulate. But I wasn't holding a grudge. I wasn't holding anything. I had already put it all down. She just hadn't noticed until now. "Do you know what this could cost me?" she asked finally. "Yes," I said, standing. "That's why I did it Monday morning." She had nothing left to say, not because I silenced her, but because the rest of the world was already talking. And now she couldn't stop it. Her downfall didn't come with a bang. It came with a soft beep, the kind a payment terminal makes when it denies your card. Tuesday morning, she was at a coffee shop 2 blocks from her office, trying to buy a 7 lavender oat milk latte, the same overpriced drink she used to text me about, bragging how Derek got me hooked on these. Only this time, the machine blinked red, declined. She tried again. Same card, same beep. Barista smiled awkwardly, pretending not to notice her panic-slicked fingers. The line behind her started to form. Someone coughed. She pulled out her phone and called me. "Hey," she said, voice low, clipped. "Did you do something to the Amex?" I let the question hang. "Hello?" she pushed. I took a slow breath. "Corporate card, right?" "Yes." "You still employed?" Click. She hung up. I smiled, placed my phone face down again, and stirred my coffee. It wasn't personal. It was protocol. See, 3 days earlier, while she was somewhere playing conference room Kama Sutra, I was in my lawyer's office filing a motion, emergency petition for separation of marital assets. No drama, no fireworks, just paper, ink, and a signature that said, "Not yours anymore." She didn't even see it coming. Because in her world, money was a current, always flowing, always there. She'd never bothered to trace the wires back to the switch I could flip. By noon, she tried the joint account, the one we use for groceries, dog grooming, Amazon deliveries, and occasionally her emergency wardrobe refreshes before client meetings. It had $84.22 left in it. Everything else transferred, not hidden, just moved, legally, accounted for. Her name removed days ago. She tried again with my credit card, the one she used for years, like it was an extension of her right hand. I shut it down Monday night. The app let me do it with a single tap. Remove authorized user. She called again. I let it ring. By 2:00 p.m., she was locked out of her gym account, not because of some grand gesture. It just happened to renew on the same day the auto payment failed. Her Apple Music, canceled. Spotify, logged out. Hulu, gone. She never paid attention to where the money came from. She just swiped, tapped, streamed, and assumed the world would keep spinning. It didn't. I made sure the only subscriptions she had left were consequences. The confusion came first, like a fog creeping in. She didn't panic immediately. She thought it was a glitch, a bank error, maybe even identity theft. It took hours. Several declined charges, a bounced Uber ride, and a rejected Venmo transfer before it settled into her chest. This wasn't a tech issue. This was me. She called her best friend, Kelsey. I know this because Kelsey called me 15 minutes later, trying to understand what was going on. She's scared, she said, breathless, like she was reporting a missing person. She says you emptied everything. She can't access anything, not even her airline points. Kelsey, I said calmly, she cheated on me for 6 months and used my card to book the rooms. Silence. Then a mutter. Right, yeah, I didn't know that part. Now you do. Kelsey didn't call again. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the illusion of control she'd always carried. The quiet arrogance of assuming I'd just stay static, steady and soft, like a couch she could collapse into when the world wore her out. But I wasn't soft. I was coiled. She used to joke, "You're the safety net, my reliable guy." She forgot that safety nets collapse when you cut the cords. I didn't leave her destitute. Let's be clear about that. Everything I did was by the book. Every asset was accounted for, properly filed, legally defensible. But it was surgical, clean, swift, and above all, deliberate. That night she emailed me, subject line, "Seriously?" No body text, just the subject. I replied with a single sentence, "Welcome to financial independence." She didn't respond, because for the first time since she met me, she didn't know how. It started with a memo, short, cold, written in the exact tone that says, "This isn't a request, this is a bullet you're about to swallow." Subject, preliminary notice of internal review. Sender, HR compliance. CC'd legal, risk management, and one C-suite name she never expected to see. She opened it at 8:47 a.m. on Wednesday, standing in a bathroom stall on the 10th floor, hands trembling, still trying to unlock her frozen company account. She hadn't even logged back in since Monday. The hallway whispers had already started. Snippets about HR pulling calendar data, screenshots, external legal involved. The investigation had a title, Employee Code of Conduct Review, Case 0051B. She was the B. Inside, a line stood out like a guillotine. "We have received credible documentation suggesting misconduct that may constitute a conflict of interest, breach of internal ethics policy, and potential misuse of company resources." Credible documentation? That was me, and Derek's wife. You see, I'd done my homework. My submission wasn't some rage-filled rant or vague accusation. It was a perfectly structured packet, PDF sorted by month, each entry labeled with screenshot of messages, complete with metadata. Calendar overlaps, client meetings that didn't exist, travel confirmations, room numbers, timestamps, same city, same nights, expense reports, billed dinners that ended in hotel suites, notes Derek had left on shared files like "See you Monday after a Sunday night stay," each piece cross-referenced, documented, quietly devastating. Derek's wife, God bless her strategic rage, sent her own package. Hers came with screenshots from their home Nest Cam, time-stamped, one showing him on a call with my wife, shirtless at 11:15 p.m., kids asleep upstairs. She didn't scream, she didn't threaten. She sent a cover letter titled "Supplemental Material for Internal Ethics Investigation." HR took one look at both packets and escalated it quickly. They didn't want a lawsuit. They wanted distance, damage control, and plausible deniability. By Friday morning, she was summoned to a closed-door meeting, the kind where you don't bring your laptop, the kind where someone from legal watches you enter and exit silently. She came in confident. That's the thing about people who live inside the walls of their own charm. They think they can just smile their way through anything. She wore a blazer, full makeup, hair pulled back like she was running for re-election. By 9:15 a.m., she wasn't smiling anymore. They didn't yell. They didn't even accuse. They just showed her the material, slide by slide, quote by quote, time after time. She tried to argue context, claimed Derek exaggerated in text, said the hotel stays were necessary for proximity to clients. Which clients? One HR rep asked. She couldn't name any. Then they showed her Derek's messages on company Slack, where he bragged about working overtime with the dream team and linked to a selfie of the two of them in a suite with champagne. That did it. They paused the meeting, stepped out, brought legal back in. She sat alone for 16 minutes in a beige conference room with 3 empty coffee cups and no way out. When they returned, they gave her 2 options: submit a resignation letter by 3:00 p.m. to preserve professional dignity and avoid escalated review, or be placed on administrative leave pending further investigation, which would be reported to the board and formalized in her employment record. She chose option 1. By 2:46 p.m., her company email was deactivated, badge revoked, devices remotely wiped, desk packed into a banker's box by someone from IT who didn't make eye contact. Derek wasn't so lucky. He got suspended pending further review. His wife, she hired a forensic accountant. The office buzzed for days. She was asked to step down. No one used the word fired, but everyone knew. And no one, not one person, asked where she went. The same people who used to fawn over her presentations, laugh at her snide little jokes about clueless spouses, now avoided eye contact in the hallway. Her name vanished from the internal project dashboards overnight, like she was a ghost, a liability. The fall wasn't loud, it was surgical, and it carved her out clean. She always assumed there'd be a net, not financial, that one already slipped through her fingers, but a social one. The friends, the coworkers, the curated brunch crowd with their oversized sunglasses and Pinterest-worthy charcuterie boards. She'd invested in those people for years. Birthday posts with 20 hashtags, shared Spotify playlists, matching wine tumblers engraved with "Work Wives Forever." She thought those bonds were concrete. Turns out they were sugar glass. The morning after her resignation, mutually agreed departure, she posted a vague Instagram story. A boomerang of her legs in yoga pants, feet on the balcony railing, coffee in hand. Caption: time to reset. Some endings are beginnings in disguise. No one responded. She texted Kelsey, her ride or die, no answer. Sent a follow-up: hope you're not believing everything you hear. Kelsey replied 8 hours later: I saw the Slack screenshots, Alina. You really made us look stupid. That was the nicest message she got. 2 of her old co-workers unfollowed her by noon. A third blocked her outright. Even the office assistant she once gave hand-me-down handbags to posted a cryptic quote the next day. When people show you who they are, believe them. She went into damage control, reached out to 3 different group chats. One of them was called Ladies Who Launch. She wrote, just want to clarify, the situation at work got way out of hand. Lots of misinformation going around. You all know me. No one replied. She tried to FaceTime her friend Rachel. Declined. Tried again. Declined again. She left a voice message. Look, I get that things are messy right now, but I expected a little more grace from you. Rachel sent one line back. You humiliated yourself. The words burned. She turned to family, where loyalty is supposed to survive scandal. Her mother answered the phone, listened in silence while she half-sobbed through a story about misunderstanding, overreaction, and how it wasn't even physical at first. When she paused, her mother said, You broke it, you clean it, and then hung up. Her sister, once the shield she wielded in every holiday argument, texted a day later, I don't even know who you are anymore. She tried her last card, the old college roommate, Monica, who always defended her, even when she didn't deserve it. Monica replied, Girl, you were the one we used to warn each other about. And just like that, the crowd was gone. No wine nights, no inside jokes, no girls' trips, or you deserve better, babe mantras and group chats, because none of them wanted to be associated with her fallout, not out of morality, but optics. She was toxic now, a punchline in office gossip, a cautionary tale in passive-aggressive DMs. Not the ambitious queen with killer heels anymore, just a name and a headline no one wanted to click on. She thought charisma would save her. It didn't. She thought shared secrets and gossip and loyalty, bought with gifts and proximity, would buffer the blow. It didn't. Because when the applause stopped, when there were no eyes to perform for, she realized the cheers were never for her. They were for the illusion she built. And once the mask slipped, no one clapped. They just slipped quietly out the side door. By Thursday night, she was scrolling her contacts like a gambler at the last slot machine. No one left to call. Even Derek stopped responding, likely on his lawyer's advice. That was the first night she cried. Alone on the floor of the bedroom she once redesigned to feel more like a hotel suite. All those voices she once bathed in, the admiration, the laughter, the praise, were silent now. The same people who once toasted her success now pretended they'd never heard her name. Not because they were cruel, because they were already busy watching someone else's story unfold. And in hers, she was no longer the main character, just a cautionary footnote. It was Thursday afternoon when my phone rang. Blocked number, just the way executives like to pretend privacy still exists. I almost let it go to voicemail, almost. But something about the timing, about the particular rhythm of the collapse around her told me this one might be worth answering. "Mr. Carver?" a voice said, measured, polished, with just a hint of nervousness around the edges. "Yes, this is Mitchell Crane. I believe you know my name." I did. Her boss, the one she used to speak of like a demigod in loafers. "Mitch sees me," she'd say. "He gets my value." Apparently he got a little more than that, like forwarded emails from me, carefully composed, discreetly captioned, time-stamped to make sure no one could accuse me of pettiness. What he didn't know, until then, was that I wasn't just her husband. I was also a silent co-founder in a firm his portfolio had invested in 3 years earlier, a 7% stake that came with no board seat but plenty of insight. We'd met once at a holiday event. He didn't remember. "I assume you've heard what happened," he said, still formal. "I have. I wanted to personally apologize for the unpleasantness. Unpleasantness." That was cute, like she tripped over a policy memo and fell into a coworker's bed. "I didn't take it personally," I said. He cleared his throat. "Well, that's admirable. Most people wouldn't have handled it so discreetly." There was a pause then, like he was wading into colder water. "Look," he said finally, "the truth is, your name's come up before. Quietly, strategically. My team has been looking at your early-stage modeling for your former firm's compliance backend. Clean code, elegant. We'd like to explore a consulting engagement." I could practically hear him wiping his forehead. This wasn't an olive branch, it was an evacuation ladder. He wasn't just patching the HR scandal, he was trying to secure a win in the wreckage. "I'll send over a draft agreement," he added. "Of course, this is strictly professional, separate from the situation." Separate, sure, totally unrelated that he wanted to distance his company from the woman currently being dragged across internal Slack channels and avoid the stink of negligence by hiring the very man she cheated on. I waited 3 seconds before replying. "Send it," I said. And just like that, her former boss became my new client. By Friday, the contract was in my inbox. 4 months, part-time, 6-figure retainer. Strategic systems audit and process refinement. Corporate speak for come fix the mess she helped create. I didn't smile, not exactly. It wasn't glee, it wasn't even revenge. It was the cold, quiet weight of everything realigning. She had spent months reducing me, talking about Derek like he was what a real man looked like, mocking my stability as if it were weakness, whispering over drinks to her friends that I lacked ambition while Derek played entrepreneur with someone else's corporate card. And now, the man who used to ignore me at galas was wiring me retainers. Her career was gone. Mine? Resurrected by the same people who once treated me like background noise. That weekend, she emailed me. No subject. Just a question. "Did you set this up?" I replied, "No, you did." She didn't write back. Mitchell sent a follow-up Monday morning. "We'd love to discuss expanding your role after the first quarter." I sipped my coffee, opened the calendar, and penciled them in. Not for revenge, just to remind myself what clarity looks like when it finally stops pretending to be loyalty. It was a Wednesday night when the text came in. Just 4 words. Can we please talk? No punctuation. Just desperation dressed up as humility. I waited an hour, then sent back a calendar invite, subject, settlement discussion, location. My lawyer's conference room, downtown, with glass walls and cold light, and the kind of quiet that makes liars sweat. She showed up 10 minutes early. That surprised me. The version of her I remembered was always 5 minutes late and breathless, with an excuse. This one was on time, silent, and smaller somehow. Her heels were shorter, hair pulled back like she was testifying. She wore a black blazer I'd never seen before, probably bought in a panic, something neutral to make her look serious. Controlled, she walked in alone. Her lawyer followed, flustered, clearly brought in too late, probably not even briefed properly. That used to be her style. Wing it, charm it, win it. I didn't stand when she entered, neither did my attorney. This wasn't a reunion, it was a closing. She sat across from me, eyes darting toward the folder already placed on the table between us. A single tab marked Final Terms. She looked at me instead of opening it. I want to talk. Before we go into all that, I nodded once. Talk. She inhaled. I know everything's messed up, but I think we can work through this. We've built a life, and I don't believe that one mistake. I cut in, calmly. It wasn't one mistake. Her mouth opened, closed. I didn't come here to fight, she said softly. Good, I said. Neither did I. I slid the folder across the table. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside, a proposed divorce agreement. Minimal spousal support for 12 months. Capped. No claim to future earnings. No alimony. A strict non-disclosure agreement tied to reputation clauses. An addendum. Digital access revoked. Assets divided as already filed. No retroactive claims. She flipped through the pages like she was scanning a manual for a machine she didn't recognize. She looked at her lawyer. He leaned in, read quietly, then blinked, whispered, It's generous. Take it. That landed hard. She turned back to me. I thought you'd want to talk more. I met her eyes. We've already talked. You just weren't listening. Tears welled up then. Real ones. No theatrics. She tried to keep her lips from shaking but failed. Her hand gripped the edge of the folder like she needed to feel anchored to something, anything. I thought you loved me. I nodded. I did. Enough to let you bury the knife before I pulled it out. Her lawyer tapped the signature page. She looked at it for a long time, then picked up the pen. Her hand shook when she signed. As the last stroke dried, I stood up and reached for the folder, tucked it under my arm. Meeting adjourned, I said. She didn't move, didn't speak, didn't follow me out. And that was the real settlement, not the document, not the clauses, not the quiet money trail now beyond her reach. It was the silence I left behind, the version of me that didn't yell, didn't beg, didn't break, just ended it with paperwork, not pity. She used to call me her safe place. Turns out I was the fire exit. It was nearly a month later when she reached out again, the last thread in a rope she'd already burned through with both hands. I was in Austin, standing backstage at a leadership conference. Funny that word, leadership. What they meant was resilience, clarity, the ability to walk through fire and still look like you dressed for it. I'd been invited to speak on crisis management, not the irony I would have chosen, but poetic all the same. Backstage, the air smelled like nervous ambition and overly starched suits. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number, but I knew it was her. She'd burned through her contacts too, apparently. The message was short, no anger, no pleading. Was it all fake? I stared at the screen, not because I didn't know the answer, because I wanted to choose the version of myself that would reply. I waited, sipped from a bottle of water labeled with the conference logo, checked the stage timer, 2 minutes until showtime. Then I typed, no, the love was real, the silence was earned. And hit send. No ellipses, no typing bubble, just digital dead air, the kind you don't fill, the kind you respect. She didn't respond. And that finally was perfect. Because by then, she wasn't reaching for forgiveness. She was reaching for a past that no longer fit. A version of me she thought she'd always be able to rewind to, like a song on a playlist that never deleted. But I wasn't hers anymore. She lived across town now, in a beige one-bedroom that still smelled like new carpet and regret, still jobless. The industry she once dominated had no interest in a rebrand. Turns out, compliance risk is hard to recover from, especially when the internet forgets nothing and HR departments share everything. Her work husband filed for divorce within 2 weeks of the investigation closing. His wife got the house, the kids, the pension. He got a condo rental with a fold-out couch and a lawyer who billed hourly. I, on the other hand, walked on stage to a room full of executives and analysts scribbling notes, nodding like I was the oracle of calm amidst chaos. They asked about failure, strategy, trust. I gave them case studies, data, jokes that landed well enough to earn polite chuckles. What I didn't tell them, couldn't tell them, was that the most important leadership lesson I learned wasn't in a boardroom. It was at a dinner table, with a woman texting someone else under the table while calling it harmless. And that sometimes the loudest form of strength doesn't look like slamming doors or shouting matches. It looks like forwarding an email, signing a form, locking the exits, and walking away without looking back. I finished my talk, got applause, the real kind, not the hollow kind she used to chase from rooms full of people who clapped only because it was polite. I stepped off the stage, phone still in my pocket, and felt something shift. Quiet, final, irreversible. There was no more rage, no revenge left to taste, no itch in my spine to get even, because I had myself. And for the first time in years, that felt like enough.